Dzień dobry, or good morning, on our third day of our adventure where we wanted to make the trip to Gdansk. But of course, before you can leave, you need to fill up all your storage areas so that you have something to eat and something to drink. And I wanted to give back the car, which I got borrowed by Markus Oehler, the co-founder of MSM Digital, and I want to send him a big shout out for this favor, because otherwise I could never organized all the stuff that I needed to prepare the boat for this trip, because at the end I needed quite a few spare parts, and without a car it's just impossible to organize these things. So when we dropped off the car at MSM Digital, Tomek, my skipper and good friend, and I, we were waiting for the taxi which should bring us back to Teerhofinsel, where the ship was lying at the Tiedemann shipyard. And before we could start, we needed to wait for some big ships to open the channel for us, and then we were finally good to go, and we made our trip, and we started with around 4 knots to drive up the channel. And I was very curious if everything would work out fine, no water would come in, the engines would not stop, and so on and so on. So now I leave it to you, and enjoy the trip, and I will come back later.
Cześć, płyniemy! Mamy swój kanał, silniki chodzą, Oliwier schodzi, płyniemy. 7 węzłów. Pozdrawiamy, Polska! Wypływamy na otwarte morze. Płyniemy 8 węzła. Ostatnia latarnia na wymówę. Piękna plaża po prawej stronie, ale się nie będziemy kąpali. No i wypływamy na baltic. Mamy 1200 obrotów, teraz będziemy przyspieszać. Jesteśmy na baltiku.
After we left the channel around Travemuende, we had amazing weather, we had an amazing run. The engines were running up to 11.5 knots, so we really thought it's going to be an easy trip, it's going to be an easy run. The weather was not too bad, and the boat was just running amazing. If you imagine that it was 13 years unmaintained and unloved on the dry, on the hard, and we were just thrown it in the water and everything was working perfect. At the beginning of the trip I filled up the tanks with roughly 800 liters of diesel, and we thought it's going to be enough to drive us up to Gdansk in different steps of our trip. But of course, as you can see on the RPM meter, we were running the engines around 1800 RPMs, which was quite high for the hull speed and for the engines. So we burned more or less 40 liters of diesel per hour on our first day. We managed to arrive in Stralsund, which is a beautiful harbor. And after only losing one of our buoys during the docking maneuver, we found a proper space where we could sleep and where we docked into. But I must give you a little hint for the movie of tomorrow. The day tomorrow will not be so simple like the day that we had today. So keep posted, don't forget to subscribe and enjoy our crazy trip, and stay tuned.